In this episode of The Shadows Project, I speak to the wonderful Cori Nevruz about her intriguing new novel, Dirty Laundry.
Hey Tim,
Yeah.
how are you?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
How's life in North Carolina?
It's actually a little cold. It's been really warm lately, but today it's ice on the grass. Not normal.
Yeah. Okay, so we're here to talk about your book predominantly, but the idea of the channel is to get to know you a little bit more, to kind of put a face behind like the magic of the book. Yeah. So your book, Dirty Laundry.
Yeah.
I read it. It's a weird one because it you know, like a psychological thriller is meant to make you feel things, yeah, and it also tells you some things about yourself sometimes. And for everybody reading a book like this, they'll have a different experience. You know, I think that's, you know, you'll read it from the point of view of like a housewife who's having to look after some kids, and I've never had kids, so when I was reading it, the main character, I was like, oh, she's a bit like a princess, like moaning all the time. But what was weird is when she, in the end, at the end of the book, I liked her, which is terrible because that's meant to be the part where. And the reason I like her is because she finally, like, sort of, because all the way through she doesn't seem to stand up for herself and fight for herself, and it was annoying me. I was like, come on. And then in the end, she stood up for herself, and I think that's the beauty of a book like this, when the end pulls everything in together, because often you read something all the way through and then the end's terrible. But the
end, oh gosh, I would hope that's not the case.
Yeah, and I thought I thought the end pulled it all together really well. So really enjoyed it. I just wondered at first if you could just outline the story, and then we'll just
sure,
just pull it apart. Yeah.
So Dirty Laundry is the story of, like you said, Samantha's a mom and a wife, and pretty stressed out, high strung. She turns to journaling her problems and her battles with depression and anxiety. And the reason she does this is because her very private and very controlling husband just don't want her to air her dirty laundry, so to speak, with friends or a therapist. So she turns to the journal as her therapy. She finally ends up meeting a friend, Charlotte, who she finally feels she can confide in and she can trust. But what she shares with her could risk both of their lives. So that's where it gets tricky.
Mm-hmm. So is she like, because at the start of the book, she's like this perfect, you know, young girl. Yeah, she's exercises, college friends. They're a bit jealous of her, good body, all these things, you know, tight and that. And then later on in the book, she's not like, you know, terrible, but she's put on a little bit of weight. She's like, you know, and this obviously affects her psychologically. The book, and so this is something. Do you think this is like a trait that lots of people have who are very controlling? Really, they're broken inside.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are perfectionists, people assume that a perfectionist is perfect all the time, but really, you can be a very imperfect perfectionist and want things to be perfect, but they're not. And I think that's what a lot of people go through when they have children. A lot of women, probably some men too, when you're used to having control of your situation. And then all of a sudden you have this kid who doesn't do everything on schedule and doesn't do what you expect. It makes you feel like you're completely out of control. So I think that I would describe Samantha as a very imperfect perfectionist, because just because she gained weight, can no longer exercise, can't keep her house clean, doesn't mean that that's not becoming her biggest trigger. That's what's part of what's sending her over the edge, is it's not perfect, and that's what she needs.
Yeah, it's kind of like a shift between the external, you know, version of Samantha and then the internal version.
Yeah,
which keeps happening all the way through the book.
Right.
The guy. So. Like I said, when you're reading it from a guy, you know, this, you know, you might think I'm a pig because of this, yeah. But when you're reading it from a guy's point of view, when he says something like, you know, the husband says, I've got to deal with like lots of people at work and contracts and lots of, you know, stressed out, and you've got to change some shitty nappy, you know. what's the problem type of thing.
Exactly.
Can you see it from the guy's side as you're writing it, or was it just, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I've caught myself in that situation so many times where I'm like, you know, I'm up early with the kids and everything's a mess and I've got to do all these things. And then I'm like, well, my husband had to get up early. He's got timelines to meet and he has things to do. And it's not like what I'm doing is our livelihood depends on it. I mean, yes, there's lives that depend on taking care of kids.
It's more important, but yeah.
It's so different. And I think it's important for both people to, you know, sit in the other people's shoes and know that it's not really easy on both sides, but there's different consequences. But I think that was one of the best parts about writing Roger's point of view, was seeing that from his perspective, that, you know, he's kind of an ass, but at the same time, he's got a point. And so
I feel better now you say that, because I was thinking, well, she hasn't said anything to him. Yeah. So like, if this behavior, like if somebody makes you breakfast in bed every day, yeah, the first day you know, oh, thank you very much, you know, after a few weeks, this becomes normality.
Right.
Yeah? And it's just human nature to just be like, sort of, you become blasé about these things and you just accept them as normality. And it's to me that from the husband's side, he's done this and she hasn't, like, you know, he's done this and she hasn't sort of challenged him and said something to him all the way through. So I don't know, it's a bit, so I was seeing it from his side, but there was a bit in it. It was like a turning point where I thought, yeah, he's a bit of an arse, because on Valentine's Day, when she gets the flowers, and I felt really sad for her, because she gets the flowers, yeah, on the doorstep, and she's really happy. And then she calls her husband to say thank you, and he hasn't put the phone on mute, and he's saying to his secretary, "Did you send these flowers to my wife?"
Yeah, that's like the cringy, busted moment.
Yeah, and that's it. Little things like this, sort of. So it's quite subtle, like, sort of, why is it an arse, you know? It starts to
right.
But I think it doesn't start off like this, does it, in their relationship?
Well, it doesn't seem like it. It seems like they had a whirlwind relationship when it started, and you know, everything's different when you just meet somebody, and they got married quickly. But like you said, it wasn't like he necessarily asked her for those things. She did those things for him willingly, and when things became too much for her to handle, she never addressed it with him. She just dealt with it and quietly to herself was just stewing about how it bothered her.
Yeah, I'm trying to speak without giving things away, but like, so let's say after reading this book, yeah, are any of your friends like afraid of you, or your husband afraid of you? I won't say why, you know what I mean, but like,
yeah, no, I think that even if you just let somebody know that you write about murder, they're a little skeptical in general, especially because I think most people who know me as a kind person. I hope. So it's not necessarily in character to think of me and murder together, but I think that there's been some people who've read it who have been like, you know, I know there's similarities between you and Samantha. There are, and that's why the book is so personal to me, because I wrote her from experience. Back in early 2020, I just got the idea to write like a middle grade book for kids, because it's about the age of my kids. And I thought I would write a book about a government engineered pandemic that was put out there to control the overpopulation of the world. And I loved it. And I loved the characters I wrote for it. And then all of a sudden I was like, I've never lived through a pandemic. What do I know about pandemics? And kind of put it aside. And my husband, who's done some writing himself, said the old, you know, write what you know. And, you know, I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with anxiety. I've had trouble being a very, very imperfect perfectionist who likes control and likes to do things right. And I know that feeling. And so what I did is I, put that one book aside and started writing what I usually read, which is thrillers and suspense. So I started writing the genre that I normally read. And with that, just took my personal feelings and my personal experiences and exaggerated them, maybe manipulated them into something more. And that's where Samantha came from.
No, it's little things that that really affect people, that damage people. Like in the books, they go out with friends, yeah, and she's got dressed up, and she's just wearing like a lacy bra, just showing a little bit, you know what I mean? Not too slutty or something, but she wants to, she feels proud of herself, and he's kind of dismissive, and he's calling her like, yeah, you dress like a whore, and he says
That's what you want to hear when you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, he says it as a throwaway comment or something, but it's obviously not nice. And like I know, like women in my family, if someone said that to them, they'd probably have like a frying pan over their head. But obviously,
like your family.
Not all women would do this. So yeah, maybe they internalize it and keep it there, and it's all these little things that chip away at people. So when you were writing I got that, I got the little bits, the little moments that just chip away at the character, and then it's immersed with everyday activities,
right?
The routine and the boredom. But like she loves the kids, obviously, and she even also like there's a bit where she likes Christmas, yeah. Sorry, I was just closing some pop-ups that will come up. Yeah, she loves Christmas, and she wants to have that, like she's got an idea in her head of a family of how it should be, and she makes like hot chocolate for her husband, and he just like, I wouldn't drink it, but I'd probably drink it out of polite, but I'd say don't make me a hot chocolate. But yeah, so I could see why he didn't want the hot chocolate, but at the same time, it's little tiny things that just seem like nothing that can build up, and that and then lead to like people going out and doing these like crazy things. Yeah. So so these experiences, I don't know. You said some of the stories about the school, yeah. Like you work with kids. You've got like 12 books or something.
I do. I have 12 children's books. I have 3 kids, and my youngest kid, Nigel, who's a 4th grader now. When he was in preschool, he didn't talk really at all. He didn't socialize with his teachers. He didn't ever get engaged in class. His teachers were worried about him, but he was completely different at home. And so I knew there was something else going on, really, that maybe he just hadn't connected. And when he went to kindergarten, his teacher that he had was amazing. And she changed his whole outlook on school and on education. And that first year of school changed really him completely. And so my first book that I wrote, the children's books are picture books, and they're really more like writing poetry because there's not very many lines per page. But I wrote that first book as a tribute to the kindergarten teacher and how what they do contributes to your kids' lifelong love of education. And so I wrote that first book for her, and my idea was to get kids, not necessarily in her class, but just other kids that I know, to help me illustrate. I'm not the best illustrator, but I thought it would be even more touching to have a child's perspective. So what I did is I would tell the kids a theme for a page. Like I'd say, well, this page is going to be about the last day of school and how you're walking out of the school, or you're walking down the hallway and everything's empty. And then I let them take the idea and make it whatever it is that they see from their perspective. And then it was so successful, not monetarily, but so, I guess, appreciated, that I came up with another book, and I wrote another poem that became a picture book. And then I just put out to other people more on social media. So I was looking for more people who would just be interested in having their child become a published illustrator. So then I did another book. And then eventually my last book, Mina Ballerina, one of my illustrators is from the Philippines. So it's really exciting that these kids are interested and they try so hard and they put their own unique spin on each illustration. So it's really cool to be a part of that. But I know that wasn't really your question.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I do volunteer at school, and that did work into dirty laundry. I didn't realize what a tangent I went on.
That's okay, because that, you know, that comes across in the book. That's so perfectly in tune with your life, and that, you know, so you know, this love for children, and, you know, kind of do anything to keep the family and things like this. So this comes across. But the thing was, so that part of it's basically, you know, very, very real, yeah. And the other the other things, like, you know, maybe I understand when you're writing, it might not be your husband who said something, you know, it might be somebody else's husband who said something to their wife, to one of your friends, or so, and you picked this up, and you've put them all together, and you've created these characters, Roger and I forgot her name, Samantha. Yeah, Samantha. You created these characters, yes. And yeah, how much of this is, like, you know, real, taken from?
Well, a lot of it is real, and like I said, some of it's just really, really exaggerated. My husband is a sweetheart, but I have no doubt taken things that have actually happened. Like, for instance, I one time took out a pickleball set in our driveway and had to move his car out to the end of the driveway, and I forgot. And I left his car there with the keys in it at the end of the driveway all night long, and our garage door open. So fortunately, we live in a safe neighborhood, and his car's 15 years old and nobody would want it. So it's quite different than what happens in the book. And he wasn't, you know, angry and furious like Roger was, but the experience was still there. Like, oh my gosh. And then it also shows, I mean, another awful similarity between Samantha and myself is, I think I was more concerned with how he would be than he was concerned about the whole situation. So I take that and I turn it into Samantha. He's mad, and I share that with him, and he's angry, and he's so mad he leaves her car. She leaves his car out, and obviously the whole situation is completely different. But even the episode in the department store with the kid who gets lost, that actually happened to me.
Yeah, that's the one. No,
and that was actually really accurate. But I mean, every detail in that was pretty much
it just
accurate.
Takes a second, on a split second, and they're off.
Yeah, the scariest feeling in the world is thinking you lost your kid, and then not just that they're somewhere in the store, but that did somebody take them, or is he hurt? And I took all that stress and drama from that situation and added that into the book. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of it is real situations that I just exaggerated. Yeah. I feel bad for my husband though, because I think everyone's going to assume he's like Roger.
yeah. But that's why these type of books are like a, you know, a page turner. Because sometimes I watch like horror film and they're just stabbing everybody every 10 seconds, and
right.
You know, it's just, it gets, after a bit you become immune to, you know,
right,
getting stabbed. It's like, yeah, so what, you know. But with the suspense thriller like this, it's psychological. It's a build up, you know. You feel things, you know what I mean. Like I said, you're kind of screaming at the book sometimes, you know. Come on, say something, do something, you know. And you really like. So obviously you feel something for the person, but she's like, you know, infuriating you because she wouldn't act the way you act, you know.
Right.
So but yeah, like I said, in the end, I don't know what that says about me psychologically, the way it tied together in the end, that I thought, good. You know?
Well, you know, it's not just you.
I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want anyone to get killed. You know what I mean? But like, sure. Just the fact that she sort of like finally stood up for, you know, done something, you know.
Well, strangely enough, my mom felt the same way. My mom didn't really empathize with Samantha. She was like, get up, get out of bed, do something. What are you doing? And she felt the same way. And she's a mom and she's a woman, and she felt the same way as you. So not every woman will empathize with her. And a lot of people will feel like, well, you know, Roger's an ass, but geez, what is she doing? So I think there's going to be two very different sides to the way people will look at the book.
I mean, did you empathize with her when you're writing, or did you have this
I would
intentional
switch back and forth.
yeah, because some things if you write something, it can be intentional. You've intentionally you've written it that way, for the reader to feel these things. But sometimes it just happens naturally. You're just writing like without much thought for the audience. Just you're very character focused, and then different feelings come out of this. Like with different people, some people like one person, some people like another person.
Right.
I mean, I didn't like Roger. I thought he was like he wasn't very nice, but there was good qualities with Roger.
Sure.
He's hardworking, good with the kids,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my husband, Bob, really helped me with that quite a bit, because originally my first go at it was very much sympathetic towards Samantha.
Mm-hmm.
And his point, just see things clearer from Roger's perspective. And that helped me rewrite his point of view, where, he doesn't have to necessarily be a good person, but there are good qualities about him. And he does work hard, and he does have a stressful situation, and he's got a very, very important job at work and lots of stress that way. So I took a little bit of, trying to empathize and see things from my husband's point of view and roll that into seeing things from Roger's point of view. And that really helped a lot once he kind of pointed me in that direction.
Yeah. My lighting's adding to the scariness with this. It looks like, because I had light before coming from the window.
Spooky.
And now so I look like a scary story. So it lends itself to obviously, a sequel. Is there going to be a sequel coming?
I haven't planned that. Yeah. I felt like it really was over. Yeah. But I have written other things since then that are not exactly the same. So, I mean, a sequel would be fun. I just haven't really thought about it.
I was thinking maybe you should get a bit of a taste for the danger,
Oh, maybe.
That
could actually roll into something else I'm writing. That would be fun.
Yeah. So is this what you're going to do now? So you went from writing like kids' books, but now you've transitioned into doing this, or you keep going?
Well, I would like to continue writing kids' books, because I don't really do that like as a career. I do that because I think it's really fun to watch the kids grow, and I like to watch having book signings with them. Not that we've had one since COVID, but having book signings and having the illustrators show up and having them be the spotlight, not me, them. And they run art workshops for other kids that come in, and people want their autograph, and they're published illustrators. And that's a really big deal to them. And seeing that accomplishment in the kids is really fun. So I would like to continue doing that. I don't necessarily have anything I'm working on right now with that, but writing Dirty Laundry gave me a taste for writing a novel. And it was honestly something I never thought I would do. I didn't even like to read when I was growing up. I hated it. I was bad at it. I hated reading out loud in class. It stressed me out. I couldn't read on tests. And then when I was a senior in high school, so, I mean, almost in college, I finally had a friend who recommended a specific book to me, and it made me fall in love with reading, and it changed everything about how I did things. And from then on, my mom would introduce me to Sue Grafton and Dean Koontz, and I started reading a lot of mysteries, and I loved it. And so since then, my tastes have changed a little bit, but I still love to read. And in fact, I read so much that I get all my plots mixed up, where I'll read 3 books in a week, and I'm like, I don't know which story that was from, and I'm not exactly sure who wrote it, and I can't tell you what the title is, but it was so good. Yeah. So it's really hard to make recommendations when you're like that.
Yeah. That's it's like it parallels well, like I do a little bit, because I've been coaching some kid. I live in Bulgaria most of the time, and I've been teaching some kid from Bulgaria. She's only like 14, and I had this idea to get a book published, self-published.
Yeah. She
writes it, and I just correct it and give her some direction along the way. I mean, she's written like I think so far about 11,000 words. Yeah. Wow. Which in 3 months or something. So there's no rush. I was thinking like, maybe it's a 2-year project. I meet her once a week online, have a little chat with her, just try and coach you to, to write this book. At the end of it, if you've written a book, if you've published a book when you're 16, that's like, it's life changing. Or like, so when I read about you putting the pictures in for the children, this is really, really, really beautiful, because you don't realize the impact it could have on them later on. You know what I mean? Like your friend handing you a book, yeah, or something, it totally can change the trajectory of your life and make you, enrich your life. And that's why I started the channel, because I don't think people read enough. I don't think it's sold to them very well.
Right.
Especially like boys, really, generally. I don't know any young guys who read. Girls seem to read a bit more, but I think it's not sold to them properly. So
no, I agree.
I want to take the channel in different directions and try and like keep meeting people online, introducing people to each other. So yesterday I had Dylan Brody on, I had a British politician on who wrote a book, and then other people who are not so well known, self-published, published the book, writers, just to sell the idea of writing, because it's very important for children and for adults and that, for anybody. Yeah.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you do that too with your channel and with helping the young writers. But I think that I never thought I would ever write a novel. I loved reading always. I mean, always since I was an adult. Yeah. But I never once thought of writing a full book. Like writing poetry is one thing, because you can do it, you can feel it, and then it's over. Whereas when you write a novel, you don't do it in one sitting. Mm-hmm. And I never really thought that was something I could do or that I would aspire to do. But now that I've done it, and I realize how much I love that experience and how even therapeutic it can be to go through parts of your life and translate it into something that can be, important to other people. Like, for instance, I think in life in general, like my goal is to impact people, whether they think of me and they think that I made them feel good about themselves, or that I maybe made them laugh or smile. That's important. And I want to do the same thing when I write. Like, that's kind of a weird thing to say when you're writing murder. I don't want to influence people that way, but I would love for people to see Samantha's point of view and know that sometimes the people that are suffering the most are also the best at hiding it. Like, no one in her community knew she was struggling. Just the same with Charlotte. Like, nobody knew that she appears to be perfect, her friend Charlotte, but she's not. She has her own things. And I think that that's an important thing for people to take, is I want to impact the reader in some way. I want them to take something away from it, whether they feel like it's, journaling can help, or whether they realize that, just because someone looks perfect on the outside doesn't mean that everything's perfect on the inside. I mean, it's not a self-help book by any means, but I think it's important to get that point across. And writing novels, I felt like really was part of that, being able to impact people. So I look forward to writing more. I have one that I'm pretty much done with that I've been querying. And then I have two more that I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between. And who knows, now that I have lived through a pandemic, maybe I can get back to the other one. Yeah. Although it seems a little too real right now.
It takes like writing and reading, it's a cheaper way than the emphasis of like Jimmy Choo shoes and that, which I mentioned.
Yeah.
I was thinking like the husband in the book, he never beats his wife. He never beats Samantha. He never, does anything. So it's all, like she has a journal. So when she gets the journal, I was expecting him to find the journal and, smack it or something. But none of this happens, which in a way, it kind of showed his like indifference towards her even more.
Exactly. Like that was, he doesn't dislike her. You're right. He's more indifferent. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't even care enough to go look for the journal or to even read it if he found it.
Exactly. I mean, was this intentionally, did you have this in mind, or did that just happen like an accidentally, or?
Yeah, I didn't
found it, or
No, it never crossed my mind for him to find it, because that's just not in his personality. Mm-hmm. And I think that she had realistic fears that he would find it and that he would look at it, but then she was medicated and kind of calm down a little bit on some antidepressants, and that chilled her out enough to not really worry as much.
Yeah.
But I don't see it in his character to even look for such a thing. And he would never imagine that his wife would need an outlet. That's just not what she is. And that's not what he married.
Yeah. So this kind of demonstrates his sort of arrogance even more, in a way, you know.
Yeah.
But this is the thing that after, again, like when you read something like this afterwards, although it's you know, it's a fast read, you can go through it, you know, quite quickly, and that you can take away things and think about them afterwards. Like even as we're just talking then, I just thought, why didn't he find the journal, you know?
Right.
Expecting it, and then it didn't happen. And then I thought, yeah, this is probably because he's indifferent and because he's, and this adds to, you know, his personality.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you know, it adds to the story because you're expecting it to happen. Yeah. So yeah, really great.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
So this is North Carolina. Are these, what's the typical like setup in North Carolina? Do you get these like sort of like, what are they called, Stepford wives type?
Ah!
Is it? Or,
no.
but then you can't insult North Carolina women, or they'll all try and fight you when you go outside.
Oh, I have to be careful. No, it's actually where I live. North Carolina is it's a big state, and it's even geographically different. Like there's mountains on the west side and there's beaches on the east side. So it's, you know, and it's the personalities of people who live everywhere are different. I live at the beach, so it's a little bit more laid back where I am, but I live in a beautiful neighborhood, and I have some neighbors who are very wealthy and they're still super down to earth. I mean, some people, you know, you would look at their house and be like, oh my gosh, that's probably, well, no, actually the wife is a doctor and they're super down to earth and really nice.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I do know a lot of moms who are stay-at-home moms, but they almost all do other things. Like they take their spare time and volunteer at the food bank, or they volunteer a lot at school. I don't know really of many who are the let's go shopping for the day kind of people, but maybe that's just the people that I surround myself with. Yeah. I know a lot of really hardworking parents, and I don't really know anybody who's really a Stepford wife, but the idea of it does sound kind of fun.
Yeah.
For a day.
Is it like a sort of, you know, you talk about the manicured lawns and things like this. Is it like this, or is it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, where I don't live on the beach, I think that would be fabulous. I'm about 10 minutes from the beach. So my neighborhood, if you took it out, you could kind of plop it in suburbia anywhere. Like we're just a suburban neighborhood where there's a house, a little yard, driveways, and there's kids everywhere. Yeah. We actually do live across the street from the elementary school. And so every morning and every afternoon, there's a parade of kids walking to school. It's kind of nice, especially when you have young kids. I'm sure the novelty of it will wear off once all my kids are out of elementary school. But, you know, Halloween is a blast because our neighborhood's not too huge, and the streets are basically closed off and there's kids everywhere. It's really a nice place to raise a family.
Halloween's crazy in America. Never seen anything
like
that. I was in like Philadelphia for a bit, and Berkeley for a while. I'm like, yeah, the costumes, they just go to town with the costumes. Not just the kids, the adults, everyone.
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of hard with women. Like women, I feel like you either have to be something super sexy or super scary. Yeah. And that's really hard when you have kids, because you don't want to scare them, and then you don't want to, you know, be too scandalous. So I usually go with the big blow up costumes. I like to be like the big blow up dinosaur. I've actually walked my kids to the bus stop in that.
You said about the sumo wrestler, yeah.
Yeah.
So this would be your go-to costume.
That would be my go-to, yeah. Sumo wrestler, big blow up dinosaur. I have a cow costume I wear pretty much everywhere. I don't know why, but since I was in my 20s, I would just throw on my cow costume sometimes. It's just fun to see people's reactions.
Because we in England are a bit more reserved with things like this. I used to love it when I was a little kid. We were like, you know, bin bag. Put a bin bag, put a hole in it, put it over your head.
Right.
Get a hat, paint your face green, you know. Always the same costume, like a witch or, you know, a scar on your face. But yeah, but that was it. So your kids, do they write? How old are your kids? You've got three.
I have a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's the one I'm working on with reading right now. Like, he doesn't have the love for reading like the rest of us do, but I'll get there. Then I have a 13-year-old. He's almost 14. He's in middle school, but he'll be going to high school next year. And then I have a 16-year-old who is driving and actually had me take him to the ER the other night because he had a big accident at the skate park, but he's okay.
Okay, cool.
So my kids are pretty spread out. I have them in 3 different schools at 3 different levels, all boys. I'm a typical boy mom.
Yeah.
My kids love sports, and my husband and I coach them in some sports, which is really fun. But Coltrane, who is my oldest, he's 16. He got into writing comics for a while, and he was really, really good at it. So I'm hoping that's something that he'll pick back up again. My middle son, Ivan, he really likes to read. I can see him writing. He's written a couple of really very short stories before, and I could see him getting into writing again because he's very creative, but also he's got a little bit of my way too competitive edge, where sometimes it can be a flaw, but he works really hard, and he wants his stuff to be really good.
Yeah.
And then Nigel is just my wild third child, who I don't know what to quite expect from him yet, except for that it's going to be something awesome because he's so much fun.
Nice. These must be expensive times for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
This age range is very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a driver and having kids that are in a bunch of different sports. I just want the best for them. I love that one thing that COVID has been our silver lining with being home. My kids are still at home. I don't have them in school yet. And just having them around, knowing that I only have a few more years before my oldest will be going to college, and having all 3 of them at home all the time and playing together where normally they may not. They may be with their friends. It's been such a wonderful, positive side of everything we've gone through, having them around.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think this is what I've been saying to people when you have, like, with this lockdown. I was doing the channel a few years ago. I did a few interviews face to face in Italy and a few other places. My idea was to make little mini documentaries. They were okay. They were going quite well. But then obviously last year was lockdowns, and then this year I thought, I can just do these writer chats. And then within about 7 weeks or something, I've interviewed like one of Britain's most famous politicians. I've interviewed Dylan Brody, and this other guy who's a millionaire businessman who's all over the papers here. And I was thinking, it's quite easy to get to people, because I've got some good contacts as well. But then your publishers contacted me. What's it, 5130 or 531?
5310.
Yeah, why is it 5310? What's this?
I don't actually know the whole story, but I do know that their old address was 5310 something. So I have a feeling it was derived from where their old office was.
Yeah, so they contacted me, and then they seem like they've got some good writers on their books. It's quite exciting. Yeah. So how did you get your work published with them? Did you just send it in, submit it, or?
Yeah, I actually did a Twitter pitch event, and they responded that they liked my pitch, and so I sent them the first half of my manuscript. They liked it. They wanted to read the rest, and they sent me an offer, and it was fabulous. They've been really great to work with. They have such a good variety of authors, and right now it's a nice, small, tight family. And everyone is very helpful. They're great with publicity advice and social media advice, but they've been really great to work with. I've been very thankful for the work they've done.
Yeah. Because this is what I was saying. I said, it's like this channel isn't like massive. Yeah, it's difficult to get books, it's having massive views and a big channel, but you never know if you get good people on, good writers all together. Some of them have a really high profile. Eventually, something really good could happen. And
and when COVID's over, you can come to North Carolina.
I will.
And add this one to your list, because I think you would really like it.
Yeah, definitely. I interviewed someone from there a few weeks ago. I'm trying to remember, because I've interviewed a few Americans. I interviewed Dan Tynan, he's a technology guy.
Oh yeah.
Right, you know, he writes. He's like a humorist as well. He writes for like U.S. Airlines or something. So
Nice.
like interviewed some good people there, and like another writer who was a spy. It might be him actually. He was a spy in the '70s in Europe. He travelled a really good writer. Yeah. So, but I really want to go and like do these, take it on the road again, and like meet some people face to face. So I'd love to. I'll be there in North Carolina.
I love it. It's such a wonderful place. And I mean, I don't get to travel much, and I'd love to travel to Europe someday. I'll add that to my list someday.
I'll probably be back in Bulgaria soon, like once this lockdown's over. But
Yeah.
it's a great place. Yeah. So what's the special things about North Carolina? Food, drink, anything?
Well, North Carolina's known for their barbecue.
Yeah.
Either doing pulled pork on the actual big grill, which is weird to watch, but delicious. Yeah. You know, like I said, that our geography is pretty extremes. There's beautiful mountains and snow, and on the other side where we are, it's beaches all the way up the coast. Most of them are islands because they're called the Outer Banks. They like go down the coast. Mm-hmm. But it's beautiful. We have beautiful beaches. They're the really nice sand, big wide beaches, and the water's nice. Right now it's cold still, but I mean, it's not like the Pacific coast on the West Coast where even in the summer it's really cold. It's beautiful here. The water's clear, and it's a big boating community. Lots of people boat. And in the middle of the state is like the bigger city. The capital city, Raleigh, is there. Charlotte's a little bit further west, but it's a lot of variety.
So I'd have to stay away from the suburban housewives. Yeah.
I don't know. You might like it.
Okay, really,
we're pretty fun. We're pretty fun.
Yeah, I know, until you go crazy and then giving spree. Yeah. So the overall message of this video for me, I would say, for women, buy a frying pan. Yeah. Don't kill. Use a frying pan.
Be like Tim's family. Have a cast iron frying pan on hand all the time.
That's true as well. Yeah. Okay. Lovely speaking to you. Yeah.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we'll get you back on again. Definitely.
I would love that.
The idea is to come on again, so people like today really you get to see the really nice side of your personality. Yeah. And this is I believe this is what can sell books eventually. If people like the person, they're more likely to buy the product. So
I hope so.
You come across obviously really nice person, and then so not just a crazy, suburban killer.
Well, I hope not.
So yeah, and then if I have somebody, it's about getting different profiles of people on. But if we get someone really famous, I'll try and get you on with them.
And like I said before, when I'm really famous, I'll make sure that I pass your name along.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So I'll be in touch. This will probably go on like Wednesday or something. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe before I'll message you though. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great.
There's like a little traffic jam at the moment that I've got.
Sure.
But yeah.
Brilliant. No, it's just really nice talking to you. I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, it was lovely talking to you. Brilliant. Take care.
Bye. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.